Hi, and thank you for joining me for Music in My Life. Throughout history, we've had so many family groups. In more recent years, we've had the Osmonds, the Bee Gees, the Jackson 5, the Everly Brothers, Gladys Knight and the Pips, and so many more. There is an inevitable uniqueness about a family's sound. Today's guest has formed a group with his children, and I'm going to be speaking with the biggest kid of all. His name is Andy Kydd, and he's a guitarist, and he'll be talking about his group, Only Kidding. Stay with us as we discover the music in his and his family's life. As a young boy, one thing I always looked forward to at Christmas, as well as the gifts and the nice food and family fellowship, was watching the film The Sound of Music. This is probably one of the most loved films around the world. But I'm going to draw out a moment from that film. It's when they're singing the song, So Long Farewell. And there's this very special, magical moment in the film when everything slows down. When the youngest daughter, by the name of Gretel, actually sings on the stairs. And that moment gets me every time. I must confess that I often shed a tear, but don't tell the wife. There are many things we can learn from that film, The Sound of Music, but one thing I want to draw out is the fact that singing, and through singing, the family were able to find their voice, they were able to find new ways of expressing themselves, they were able to discover a newfound confidence. And on top of that, they had a whole lot of fun. I've grown up in a family environment where we had the sound of music every day. My siblings learned instruments. We had the sound of violin, sound of clarinet, guitar, trumpet, bass guitar, piano, recorder, occasions drum kits and percussion instruments. And as a family, we would get together and often sing. In fact, we would do it on a daily basis. We do it in the mornings, we do it in the evenings, and we do it extended at weekends. And that instilled within us a confidence and a joy of singing, but I also feel that it bound us together as a family. There are 10 of us, and we still get on really, really well today. And in our own families, we have continued the tradition of singing with our children. In my own personal family situation, my son is exposed to so much music. My wife sings and plays. I sing and play and compose and do all sorts of things. And my son is taking all of that in. And on occasions, as we know, our children like to surprise us. I remember once I was listening to a piece of music. He came in and he just said, Dvorak Symphony No. 9. Wow. There was a song we used to play to him when he was younger. The introduction goes like this. We're gonna slide. And every time it goes slide, we used to tip him over like that, tip him over like that. Now I remember one evening I was working and he was sitting on my lap and that introduction came in. Without me doing anything, my son started diving all over the place. He obviously recognized the sound and connected it to the movement. And that's what music in a home can do. It can become a part of you. It becomes another language. I often say that my son is trilingual. He speaks Spanish, English, and he also speaks the language of music, which comes as natural as talking. We'll be discovering a little later today about a real-life family journey. Andy, thank you very much for joining me here on Music in My Life. It's been a long time since we've actually played together. We played together back in what, the
2012, I think, was the last one that we did, and that was a lot of fun.
But yes, it was a BBC show, wasn't it? Yes.
That's right. So it was one of their specials, I think, on gospels and spirituals, and I was playing in a band for you.
Yes, of course. Tell me, where did the journey start, the guitar journey start? Was it big kid or little kid?
Well, I've often said I will always be a kid. But I was probably about 8 when I I just saw lots and lots of musicians in the local church that I attended. Very musical church. And they had musicians starting from probably around 12 years old, and a lot of people in their older teens. And they were playing in bands with keyboards and bass and guitar. And I was transfixed by the guitar. So I would be bending the ear of my mum every week saying, I want to learn, I want to learn. And nothing seemed to be happening. And then one Sunday, she said, oh, get ready. I went, why? She says, well, one of the guys from church has offered to come along and teach you and a cousin. And she had bought some guitar strings. We had an old guitar hanging around the house that was unstrung. And that was the start of the journey. I had my first lesson. My cousin started as well. He didn't last quite as long, but I've been playing ever since. And that's, I don't know, many years.
So what would you say is about the instrument that attracts you to it? Because, I mean, let's face it, you know, there's a supremacy of piano, isn't there? I mean, you can't do this.
Of course, this is true, but I think if you try and find little C on your piano, yep. Okay, so I've got a C there, but I've got another middle C. Could you play your other middle C?
Yep.
And I've got a middle C here, and I've got a middle C here, and I've got one over here. So one of the things about the guitar, I think, is that there are so many choices in voicing. Yes, we can only play maybe 6 notes at a time rather than 10, let's say.
Unless you've got a 12-string guitar.
Well, this is true. You can double up on your notes. So yeah, that's one of the things I love about the guitar, is that it's also, one of the things that you can do quite easily on the guitar is you can bend notes, you can slide into notes, you can silently bend, you can go. And so there is so much expression in the guitar that it's both a solo instrument as well as being a rhythm instrument, as well as being a melodic instrument. So it's just incredibly versatile. It becomes an extension of your musicality and your singing voice, maybe.
Right. Now, a long line of guitarists. Okay, which is the one for you and why? I have lots of favourite guitarists in different genres. So if we were talking blues, I would say Buddy Guy. I love Chicago blues. I love the way that he plays, lots of raw energy. If we were talking rock, it might be someone like Eddie Van Halen or Nuno Bettencourt, because I just love the energy that they put into their guitar playing. But the guitarist that speaks to me the most and has probably influenced the way that I approach guitar more than anyone else is a guitarist called Dan Huff. And most people will never have heard of him unless they do what I do and read the liner notes on CDs. That's why I prefer having the physical products, because it's not just about there's something about record collection, but no, I like to see the credits. You know, who's actually played on this?
Absolutely. The first time I picked out Dan Huff, I was at university and I was getting into rock guitar, lots of fancy techniques, two-handed tapping, and all of that kind of stuff.
What did you study at university?
I'm an electronic engineer, so I did a master's in electronic engineering. And I did a minor in French. So,
okay. So how does that tie into guitar playing? I mean, are there similarities in terms of the way that the mind actually thinks, in terms of, as an engineer, obviously there's obviously a logic that you need to apply, and speaking French, yeah, I mean, you need beaucoup de logique.
Et voilà. So yes, there is a lot of logic in music playing, and you may have come across a lot of studies that show that kids do a lot better in maths and those types of subjects because of music. So I think that there is certainly that kind of hook, and if you get into music theory, you can see the mathematical relationships between notes. If you go up an octave, you're doubling the frequency, all of that kind of stuff. But there's another angle in there as well that has certainly appealed to me. If you look at I don't know, take someone like Leonardo da Vinci. Maybe you could coin the phrase as the Da Vinci approach.
Okay.
He was both an engineer, someone who was pragmatic in making things happen, getting things done, but he was a creative as well, and he would explore the arts, and they kind of just merged together. And I spent a big chunk of my career in R&D labs, And there, yes, you'd find some people who would be, the stereotypical engineer that you'd find on, I don't know, Big Bang Theory, who are quite nerdish. But you also had people who were musicians, had playwrights. You had people who were just as excited about the arts as they were about turning ideas into reality. And that's what engineering is, I think.
Well, picking up on turning ideas into reality, I'm going to get you to play now because you've written a song, you're a songwriter. I mean, what inspires you in terms of your songwriting?
Hey.
Or did something inspire you to say, well, oh, there's a songwriter in me? Have you always written songs, or is that something?
Not so much. I mean, I've always come up with musical ideas because I see that's the role of the type of guitaring I play as a bit of a session guitarist, doing a bit of television, a bit of touring, a bit of recording. But the step into, well, I'm not just going to record the guitar part, but I'm going to write the entire song. That was something that I kind of fell into, and I found myself really, really enjoying it. It, again, stoked the fires of lots of creativity. And I've had a lot of fun just exploring, developing chord progressions, voicings on guitars, ideas that hopefully are musical, and then finding the words to go along with it.
Okay, well, we'll be the judge of whether it's musical or not. Play it.
No pressure there. This is something that I wrote on guitar.
Hey, that's fantastic. What's that called?
It's called I'm Coming Home.
Coming Home.
And there are lyrics, got a full band arrangement, and it's...
And that works well, per se, doesn't it? I mean, it works well on its own.
Just as a piece of music.
Yes, I mean, ditch the singers and the drummer and everything like that. You're going solo. You need a manager.
You're very kind. I love writing band kind of pieces and writing the music, so I think the song kind of grows with those, but the music was written first on guitar, pretty much like that, and that was the starting point, and hopefully it was strong just as a piece of music before layering on vocals and all the other tracks.
Well, I was actually, just observing what you're doing there, because, if you hear it in my next tune, then you can see me. But no, I was just intrigued watching it. I mean, I play a bit of guitar, but my playing style is just simply using the entire hand. But of course, you're there using the thumb to hold the bass note.
So yes, absolutely. I mean, there are a number of different techniques. I was classically trained, so I started, doing things like I don't know. things like cavatina.
Yeah.
And so I did lots of finger picking. But that came after many years of simple finger picking. And from that first guitar lesson that I spoke about earlier, and just doing the regular, just this cymbal throwing. But you're absolutely right. There are techniques, things that are called things like hybrid picking, where you can use the pick either as a strumming device, but also something that's called flat picking, where, in fact, famous piece that can we do that bit again and I'll play it properly? But so if I do that example again, maybe it's better on electric a little bit later, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You can do it.
So just cutting back to the to the question of different picking styles, then what it means is that you can mixing flat picking with strumming. And you can use your fingers, so you can mix between flat picking and what's going on with your fingers. And I just find it, again, very expressive.
It's amazing, because it's obviously a long line of instruments. It's got a long family line, hasn't it? I mean, some of the instruments which came before, you have like the zither, sitar, and these are all ancient instruments, but all forms of guitar. So guitar has been ubiquitous throughout history, it would seem.
Absolutely.
And I guess it's because of the portability of it as well. I tried to put this in my
in your backpack. To your point earlier, I think about the popularity of the piano, very, very versatile. But the guitar, in many respects, has become, if you like, the people's instrument. I would say, because you can go along to the beach and play around the campfire and do latest pop songs without a lot of effort. You can get going on the guitar really, really quickly, I think.
But you've got devices like tablets, which have, I've got a guitar on here. I could probably outplay you.
You probably could. I know how dexterous you are.
Yeah. Guitar.
Yeah, it's not quite the same thing, I would challenge. Yeah, I think part of the dexterity, I teach a bit of guitar as well. And there is so much that is done, if you like, in coordination between the left hand and the right hand. So you might have things where you are playing with a pick, and for example, actually, can I switch to another guitar and I'll use that as an example?
By all means, I was going to say, you've got a family of guitars.
Yep.
Well, but before you delve into the family of guitars, let's talk a little bit about your own family, because I gather that you are passing the musical gene on to your progeny, and you have a group, and it's my kind of name, because I love a little bit of play on words and a bit of cheese.
It is a little bit cheesy. It's only kidding.
That's very handy, isn't it?
Because our family name is Kydd.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. The name actually was chosen by my middle daughter. So I have.
So what do they play?
girls.
What do they play? You've got 3 daughters. So what do they actually
Three
play?
daughters. Let's see. Hannah is my oldest, and she plays guitar, of course, bass. She takes lessons with me for those two. She plays drums very well. She plays piano very well, and she takes singing lessons. Mary is my second, and she plays all of those as well. So it is guitar, bass, drums, and piano, and she takes singing lessons also. She's also the lead singer in our group, I would say. So those are the oldest two, 14 and 13 now. My youngest is 7. Her name is Sarah, and she plays guitar and piano, and she also takes singing lessons.
Wow.
So that's.
So is there a rota system? This week you're on guitar, this week you're on drums, this week you're on whatever.
I think my music room in my house is used more by my girls than
really?
by me. My wife is Japanese. Her name's Yoko,
Wow.
and she is very good at making sure that they're diligent in doing their practice.
Wow, okay.
So they all started their instruments at about 4 years old,
That's
and they're turning into fine musicians.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Right, now you can go to the other family because, you know, it strikes me, you know, guitarists are always carrying lots of guitars around. Now, when they go and smash guitars on stage, are they real?
That's a very good question. Often, the song before the smash or before the burn, they will swap out to a cheap guitar. They will play it for that one song. This is what I've heard, what I've read, and then it's that guitar that goes up in flames. So it's all part of the entertainment business.
But if they're on tour, you know, 90-day tour, they've got to have 90 guitars.
Yeah. So,
okay, well.
and that really happens. So, yeah, there are some artists who will have a cheap guitar every day.
Right, well, let's have a look at what some of these other guitars do. I'm really itching to hear.
So, yeah, let's switch. So this was my acoustic. Like many guitarists, I name my guitars. This one's called Rose.
Rose.
And she does smell of rosewood. She does smell of roses. Wow. In fact, Brazilian rosewood, which is very, very special. So this one is Adua. African name. Yes. Beautiful black guitar. And this is a Fender Strat, and probably famous for having, you know, quite a very versatile sound, but also a very wiry sound from right for the bluesy stuff.
And of course, you mentioned that you have an interest in session guitarists and so forth. Very often they are the forgotten heroes in many songs. I know some songs they've actually written very prominent guitar parts which make the song identifiable, but because it's considered an accompaniment rather than
that's right,
you know, composition.
So a good example would be the old players for Motown and for Stax. So in Motown, there's a band called the Funk Brothers, and people will recognize something like the bass line.
I've got sunshine. Okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's a guitar part that kind of makes it. You've got lots and lots of guitar in R&B and soul and funk playing, and I think it's absolutely lovely. Booker T and the MGs were the band at Stax, in Stax Records, and a fantastic guitarist there called Steve Cropper, and he'd play things like what's it called? Sitting on the Dock of the Bay.
Oh, yeah.
So, sitting in the morning sun. And then when his bit comes in, he does something really, really simple, like, it's like.
So let's share a song which demonstrates that. I think that's best demonstrated now.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to switch to the other guitar.
Go ahead.
So the third.
Okay.
This guitar's called Paula.
Paul, I feel like they shake hands or something.
So it's a long tradition. So B.B. King was known for Lucille and naming his guitars.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of gotten into the habit as well, because they're very personal instruments.
Indeed.
Every single one
Indeed.
comes from a different part of different trees, and they end up with their own personality. So this is a Paul Reed Smith, and it has a big fat humbucker sound, big fat mid-range, which is great for jazzier stuff and great for rock as well. So to your point about contemporary styles, that can be really useful if I'm going for that big rock sound. Shall we try something?
Well, let's try something. Let's try something. Well, it's something else. Andy, thank you very much. It's been most insightful. I've really enjoyed having you. Lots been learned, and it's been really great. And I wish you all the very best in everything you're doing, and all the very best in Only Kidding.
Thank you so much, Ken. Pleasure was all mine.
Thank you. Many singers who sing in choirs will say that it's not just beautiful musical harmony, but indeed it's a harmony of hearts. And perhaps that is missing in our lives, not enough singing and playing together. So maybe it's time for us to rediscover the rhythm, the melody, the harmony in our lives and in our homes. And as someone once famously said, let brotherly and sisterly love continue. Join me again for Music in My Life.